"Marry me immediately, human, or the war continues," said the alien queen. The stars shone cold and distant over the battle-scarred planet of Kythera. Smoke rose from shattered cities, and the ruins of once-proud human settlements were scattered across the plains. Captain Alina Cruz stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Resolute, her hands gripping the railing as she stared at the holographic display of the Xyrath fleet approaching. Their ships moved with terrifying precision, glowing with a faint blue energy that pulsed like a heartbeat. Humanity had fought hard, but every victory had been paid for in blood, and now it seemed the war might be over before it had truly begun. Alina's mind raced. The humans remaining in orbit were few. The Kythera campaign had been a disaster. Entire squadrons had been wiped out and critical supply lines had been cut. Yet she refused to give in. Humans were never meant to surrender easily. She turned to her second-in-command, Lieutenant Jax Vorn, who was scanning incoming communications. His face was tense, the sharp lines of stress etched deeply into his features. "Captain," Jax said, voice tight, "we're receiving a transmission. It's from the Xyrath." Queen Xyrath herself. The entire bridge went silent. A hologram flickered to life above the center console, shimmering into form. The figure was tall, regal, and terrifying. Her skin shimmered like liquid metal, her eyes glowing a piercing blue, and her presence seemed to command the very room. Even seasoned crew members instinctively straightened in their seats. "Humans," the Queen said, her voice calm but icy, "I tire of this war. Your species has shown courage, I admit, but it is not enough. I offer you a choice." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "One human may unite with me. Agree to this union and the war ends. Refuse, and your world will continue to burn." The words hung in the air like a heavy fog. Alina's jaw tightened. A marriage. It sounded absurd, but she understood immediately that this was not about romance or tradition. It was a test, a trap, and a threat wrapped into one. Admiral Kale, appearing on the comm screen from Earth Command, cleared his throat. "This is unacceptable," he said. "We cannot submit to alien demands of this kind. We must find another way." Alina stepped forward, her eyes never leaving the Queen. "Admiral, we're outmatched. If we refuse, millions of humans die. Perhaps we can use this offer to gain time to strike at a weakness." Jax frowned. "You're talking about pretending to agree? That's dangerous. One mistake and she'll destroy us without hesitation." "Dangerous, yes," Alina admitted. "But humans are creative. We can outthink them, and I believe the Queen wants more than obedience. She wants to be challenged. That is our chance." The fleet scrambled. Human engineers worked around the clock to reinforce ships, reroute power, and prepare weapons, but the odds were grim. Meanwhile, Alina prepared herself to face the Queen personally. She didn't know what she would find on the Xyrath flagship, but she knew one thing: humans did not cower. The journey to the enemy flagship was tense. The human shuttle glided silently through space, passing massive Xyrath vessels that glimmered with energy weapons and shields. Alina's heart beat steadily. She reminded herself of everything humans had accomplished, every narrow escape and brilliant strategy that had saved countless lives. This was simply another challenge. When they arrived, the Queen was waiting. The shuttle doors opened to a chamber of incredible scale and beauty. Light reflected off crystalline walls, creating patterns that seemed almost alive. The Queen stood at the far end, her expression unreadable. "You are brave to come," she said, her voice echoing softly. "Most would cower or flee. Tell me, human, do you come with fear or defiance?" Alina squared her shoulders. "I come with both, Your Majesty," she said. "Fear is natural, defiance is necessary. Humans do not surrender lightly." The Queen's gaze lingered on her. There was a spark of something, curiosity, perhaps respect. "Interesting," she murmured. "I have watched your species closely. You fight not with power, but with unpredictability. You take risks. You survive against the odds. These traits amuse me. Perhaps you understand what it means to live." Alina studied her carefully. "If that is true, then you must understand that humans can be valuable allies. We can negotiate, fight, or plan in ways that others cannot. Threats alone do not control us." The Queen tilted her head. "Very well, I will allow you 3 days to decide. But know this, hesitation is costly. Every moment you delay, your worlds suffer. Every decision you make could save millions or doom them." Alina left the chamber, her mind racing. 3 days was not much time, but it was enough to gather intelligence. She had a plan forming, one that relied on careful observation and human ingenuity. She did not yet know the full extent of the Xyrath's capabilities, but she had already noticed patterns in their movements, gaps in their defenses, and weaknesses they themselves overlooked. Back on the Resolute, Alina gathered her senior officers. Maps of battlefronts and fleet positions lit up the room. "We have 3 days," she said. "Not to surrender, but to find a way to turn this to our advantage. The Queen underestimates humans. We will not." Jack shook his head, frustration clear in his voice. "Captain, this is insane. You want to pretend to agree to a union while plotting against her if she finds out." "I know," Alina interrupted. "But humans are not predictable. That is our strength. We will observe, we will learn, and we will act when the time is right." The next hours were a whirlwind of activity. Pilots studied enemy flight patterns, engineers hacked into Xyrath communications, and strategists devised scenarios for every possible outcome. Meanwhile, Alina prepared herself to meet the Queen again. This time she would seek more than words, she needed information. When she returned to the enemy flagship, the Queen greeted her differently. There was a faint smile, almost imperceptible. "You return," she said. "Do you bring me obedience or something else?" "Observation, Your Majesty," Alina replied. "Understanding. Humans act not out of fear, but out of calculation. If you wish to negotiate, you must understand the mind of the human you challenge." The Queen's eyes gleamed with interest. "You intrigue me, human. I have fought countless species across galaxies. Few have earned my attention. Your species is different." Alina allowed herself a small measure of satisfaction. She had earned curiosity, a powerful thing when facing an enemy. "Different is not weakness," she said. "Different can be the edge that saves us all." For the next 2 days, Alina moved carefully. She gathered intelligence, learning the inner workings of the Xyrath fleet, discovering supply routes, weapon capacities, and the hierarchy that ruled their command. Every small victory of knowledge made her more confident. Every misstep could be fatal, but humans thrived on risk when guided by careful strategy. On the final day, Alina returned to the Queen. The tension in the chamber was palpable. "Have you decided, human?" the Queen asked. "Will you accept the union or not?" Alina's eyes were steady. "I accept the terms, Your Majesty," she said. "But not as submission. I accept as an opportunity for understanding, for dialogue, and for strategy. If you truly wish to end this war, you must allow humans the chance to show their value." The Queen studied her silently. "Interesting," she murmured. "You offer yourself willingly, yet I sense no fear. This is rare. Very well, you may walk beside me for the coming days. I will watch, I will test you, and then we shall see if humans are worthy of survival." Alina left the chamber, outwardly calm but inwardly racing. She had bought more time, gathered more intelligence, and positioned humanity for its first true advantage in the war. It was risky, dangerous, and uncertain, but it was exactly what humans did best. They faced impossible odds and found a way to survive. As night fell over Kythera, Alina stood on the bridge once more, looking at the distant stars. She knew the Queen would test her, that the Xyrath would probe for weaknesses, and that the smallest mistake could mean disaster. Yet for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself a sliver of hope. Humans were unpredictable, clever, and resilient. They had survived countless challenges before, and now, in the heart of the galaxy, they would face their greatest test. But Alina Cruz knew this. As long as humans remained bold, resourceful, and united, there was no enemy that could truly defeat them. The battle was far from over, but humanity's story had only just begun. The stars stretched endlessly outside the viewport of the Resolute, glittering cold and silent. But inside the human flagship, the air was electric with tension. Captain Alina Cruz stood before her officers, a calm resolve in her eyes, though inside her heart raced. The Queen's test had begun in earnest. Every moment she spent with the Xyrath revealed new pieces of a vast and intricate puzzle. A puzzle that, if solved, could save humanity or destroy it entirely. Lieutenant Jax Vorn leaned over a holomap, tracing the movements of the Xyrath fleet. "Captain, they're reorganizing their strike force around Kythera. It's like they're predicting our every move," he said, his voice tight. "We're barely keeping up." Alina nodded, her mind working quickly. "Which is why we need to think like them," she said. "We cannot match their firepower, but humans are unpredictable. We can turn that unpredictability into our advantage." Admiral Kale's face appeared on the comm screen, his stern gaze sharpening. "Alina, the Queen is watching. Any misstep in this pretense of cooperation could turn into annihilation. Are you certain this path is safe?" "It's the only path that gives us a chance," Alina replied. And humans don't wait for safety, we make it. The next hours were a blur of strategy sessions and preparation. Engineers dissected captured Xyrath drones, studying their energy cores and weapon systems. Pilots ran simulations against enemy formations, searching for weaknesses. Human minds, resourceful and relentless, moved like a storm against the impossible. Alina, meanwhile, spent long hours in the Queen's presence. They walked through the crystalline corridors of the flagship, spoke over holographic maps, and observed battle simulations. The Queen tested her repeatedly, setting moral dilemmas, asking impossible questions, challenging her decisions. Yet every time, Alina met her gaze steadily. "You are clever, human," the Queen said one day, her eyes glowing faintly in the light of the observation deck. "Most of your kind would panic, flee, or beg. You do none of these. Why?" Alina thought for a moment. "Because humans survive," she said simply. "We find a way even when there seems to be none. That is how we have endured. That is how we thrive." The Queen's expression did not change, but her eyes lingered on Alina with an intensity that suggested interest, even admiration. It was dangerous, but Alina sensed opportunity. If she could earn the Queen's respect, even a little, she could turn the Xyrath arrogance against them. The second day of the test brought the first real advantage. Alina discovered a pattern in the Xyrath fleet's supply lines. Their fuel shipments moved along predictable routes, guarded only lightly. It was a vulnerability, and exploiting it could cripple the fleet's ability to sustain war. She shared her finding with Jax and the senior officers. "This is our chance," she said. "We hit their supplies. Not to destroy them outright, but to slow them. Give us breathing room, give humanity hope," Jax frowned. "It's risky. One wrong move and they'll know we're spying. We could lose the entire fleet." "That's why we do it carefully," Alina said. "Precision and timing. Humans have always succeeded when the odds are against them. This is no different." Preparations began immediately. Pilots trained in secret maneuvers, engineers rigged stealth drones to intercept shipments, and communication officers worked to jam Xyrath sensors without alerting the Queen. It was a gamble, and everyone knew it. But humans thrived on impossible gambles. Meanwhile, Alina continued her interactions with the Queen. In private discussions, she subtly challenged assumptions, asking questions that revealed the Xyrath reliance on rigid strategies. Each conversation was a small victory, each insight a potential key to turning the war. On the third day, the operation began. Human stealth drones slipped past Xyrath patrols, shadowing the supply convoys. Pilots in agile fighters waited in orbit, ready to strike. Alina coordinated from the flagship, her mind a web of calculations and contingencies. Every human involved knew the stakes. One misstep would be catastrophic. The first strike was flawless. Drones disrupted energy fields, creating temporary blind spots in the Xyrath defenses. Human fighters darted in and disabled several supply ships, leaving them drifting harmlessly. The Xyrath were caught off guard, unable to respond immediately, but the Queen was watching. Alina sensed it, an invisible weight pressing down, testing every decision. She met the Queen's gaze across a holographic display, and for a moment the battlefield seemed silent. Then the Queen spoke, voice calm but firm. "You manipulate my resources, human, bold, I approve, and I warn, boldness can be fatal." Alina smiled faintly. "Boldness has kept humans alive, Your Majesty." The interception continued. Human ingenuity shone in every move. Pilots used unpredictable flight paths, engineers improvised weapons from captured Xyrath tech, and communication officers created phantom signals that misled the enemy. Slowly, the balance of power shifted. By the end of the day, the human fleet had significantly slowed the Xyrath advance. The Queen watched in silence, clearly impressed. She called Alina to her side. "You have skill," she said. "Your species is not as weak as I believed. Perhaps you deserve survival after all." Alina took a steady breath. "Not survival alone, Your Majesty. Humans deserve respect. We are not weak. We endure, we adapt, and when cornered, we find ways to win." The Queen's gaze softened almost imperceptibly. "Then prove it," she said. "Prove that your kind is worthy of the galaxy." The final stage of the operation began the next day. Using intelligence gathered from the previous encounters, Alina devised a daring plan. The Xyrath flagship would be vulnerable if distracted properly. If humans could draw the fleet's attention away, strike at critical points, and exploit the Queen's respect for clever strategy, they could force a truce, or at least a temporary ceasefire. Alina's plan was executed with precision. Human ships moved in coordinated attacks, striking at weak points, feinting retreats, and luring the Xy'rith into positions of disadvantage. Engineers manipulated captured tech to create shields and weapons that the enemy had never seen. Every action demonstrated human creativity, courage, and teamwork. Finally, Alina herself led a small boarding team onto the Xy'rith flagship. The corridors were vast and alien, but her team moved with determination and skill. They encountered elite guards, but instead of brute force, they relied on strategy, trapping enemies, using distractions, and exploiting the environment. When they reached the central chamber, Alina faced the Queen alone. The chamber pulsed with energy, and the Queen's presence filled the space with authority. "You have done well, human," she said. "Few of your kind could achieve what you have today. You are clever, resourceful, and fearless. I underestimated you." Alina bowed slightly. "We are human. We survive because we think, adapt, and work together. That is our greatest strength." The Queen studied her for a long moment, then she nodded. "You have proven it. The war will end. Not because I am defeated, but because I respect the courage and ingenuity of your species. Perhaps humanity has earned a place among the stars not as subjects, but as equals." Relief and triumph surged through Alina. Humanity had survived not through surrender, not through power, but through ingenuity, creativity, and the unbreakable spirit that defined their kind. The Queen extended her hand, not in demand, but in acknowledgement. "Walk beside me, human. The galaxy is vast, and your species is remarkable." Alina clasped her hand firmly, feeling the weight of history in the moment. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged victorious, not because of weapons alone, but because of courage, intelligence, and the will to survive. When she returned to the Resolute, the fleet erupted in cheers. The battle was over, and humans had won, not through dominance, but through brilliance. They had proven that even against the most advanced foes, human ingenuity, teamwork, and courage could overcome impossible odds. As the stars stretched endlessly outside, Alina gazed out at the galaxy. The Queen's ships would remain a presence, but now they were a potential ally rather than a threat. Humanity had earned respect, and with it, hope for a future among the stars. The war had ended, but the story of humanity had only begun. And in the heart of the galaxy, a human captain had reminded the universe what it meant to survive and to shine. The stars shimmered like silver threads as humanity began the slow work of recovery. Captain Alina Cruz stood on the bridge of the Resolute, her eyes fixed on the horizon of space. The war with the Xy'rith was officially over, yet the galaxy remained a place of dangers and possibilities. Humanity had survived through ingenuity, courage, and relentless determination, but peace, as Alina knew, was never guaranteed. Reports from newly secured planets streamed in. Systems once cut off by the war were being reclaimed. Refugees were returning to rebuilt cities, and supply lines restored. The humans who had endured unimaginable losses now had reason to hope. Still, Alina knew that survival in space meant constant vigilance. One misstep could turn allies into enemies and peace into chaos. Lieutenant Jax Vorn approached her, his usual tension softened by a rare smile. "Captain, we're receiving communications from other species. Some are curious about humanity, now others cautious. The Queen's influence is evident. They're watching us more closely than ever." Alina nodded, leaning against the railing. "Curiosity is good. Observation is better. If we show them what humans are capable of, our courage, our ingenuity, they will respect us. And respect can be stronger than fear." Admiral Kale appeared on the main screen, his expression serious yet approving. "Alina, the fleet has stabilized thanks to your leadership. The Queen has made it clear she will honor the truce. But she warns that this is only the beginning. The galaxy is full of civilizations, some more hostile than the Xy'rith. We must be prepared." Alina's mind raced. She had survived impossible odds before, but she knew that the real challenge was not winning battles. It was ensuring the survival of humanity as a species among countless others. "Understood, Admiral," she said. "We will learn, adapt, and ensure humanity remains strong. We've faced death before, and we will face it again, but we will endure." The next weeks were a whirlwind of diplomacy, intelligence gathering, and fleet training. Alina personally led delegations to meet allied and neutral species. Every interaction was a lesson in communication and strategy. Some species were wary, their distrust born of centuries of conflict. Others were curious, fascinated by the humans who had survived against the Xy'rith. During one such diplomatic mission, Elena visited the planet Leora, a verdant world whose people lived in harmony with nature. Their technology was advanced yet subtle, designed to enhance life rather than dominate it. The Leorans had remained neutral during the war, but were now willing to engage with humanity. Elena walked through the Leoran capital, observing their vibrant architecture and sophisticated energy systems. "You have survived this war without fighting," she asked one of the Leoran leaders, a tall figure with luminous eyes. The leader smiled. "We have our own strengths, Captain Cruz. Survival is not always about battle. Sometimes it is about patience, observation, and understanding. Humans have proven that strategy and courage can overcome brute force. That is rare." Elena nodded, noting the truth in their words. Humanity had survived not because it was the strongest, but because it was clever, adaptable, and relentless. Every victory, every narrow escape, had been the result of thinking beyond the obvious, taking risks, and trusting each other. Meanwhile, back on the Resolute, the fleet continued training. Pilots simulated complex maneuvers, engineers experimented with hybrid technologies based on Xy'rith designs, and communication teams developed new protocols for interspecies cooperation. Elena encouraged creativity at every level, knowing that innovation was humanity's greatest weapon. One day, as Elena reviewed fleet reports, a sudden alert lit up the bridge. Unknown vessels had been detected approaching the outer colonies. They moved unlike any ships the humans had seen, sleek, fast, and silent, with energy signatures that suggested advanced weapons. Jax frowned, his hand hovering over the tactical display. "Captain, these ships are not Xy'rith. They are too fast, too precise." "I've never seen anything like them." Elena's eyes narrowed. "Then we need information quickly. Prepare a reconnaissance team. We will observe first, engage only if necessary. Humanity has survived worse because we think before we act." The reconnaissance mission was tense. Human ships approached cautiously, scanning the unknown vessels. The aliens remained distant, observing silently. Elena directed the operation from the flagship, analyzing every movement, predicting patterns, and adjusting strategies on the fly. After hours of observation, it became clear the new species was powerful but cautious. They were testing humanity's reaction, probing defenses, and assessing capabilities. Elena recognized an opportunity. If humans could demonstrate both strength and diplomacy, they might avoid conflict and earn a potential ally. She initiated communication, sending a calm, structured message. "We are humans. We have survived great challenges and value both peace and respect. We do not seek conflict, but we will defend ourselves and others. If you wish to learn, we are willing to engage in dialogue." There was a long silence before the aliens responded. Their message was simple yet meaningful. Observation acknowledged, meeting requested. Elena felt a surge of cautious optimism. Humanity had survived one war against a powerful foe and was now stepping into the larger galaxy, facing unknown civilizations. But each encounter was an opportunity to show what humans could do. Courage, intelligence, and ingenuity had carried them through the darkest hours, and now those same qualities would define their place among the stars. The meeting took place on a neutral station orbiting a quiet star. The alien leaders emerged, tall and graceful, their features sharp and unfamiliar but not threatening. Elena stepped forward, confident but cautious. "You are humans," one of them said, their voice resonating like music. "You survived against a species known for conquest. Why should we believe you are more than a fleeting presence in the galaxy?" Elena took a deep breath. "Because humans endure," she said simply. "We survive by thinking, by working together, and by taking risks others will not. We are not the strongest, but we are clever. We are not the fastest, but we adapt, and we never ever give up. That is what has allowed us to face impossible odds and succeed." The aliens regarded her silently. There was no immediate answer, but Elena could sense their curiosity and respect growing. Humanity's reputation, built in the fire of battle and tempered by strategy, was spreading. Back on the Resolute, Elena and Jax discussed plans for the future. "The galaxy is bigger than we imagined," Jax said, "but I've never been more confident in our chances." Humans will survive anything because we never stop thinking, never stop adapting, and never stop caring for each other. Elena smiled, the weight of responsibility heavy but manageable. Exactly. Survival is not just about weapons or power. It's about courage, creativity, and unity. That is what makes humans extraordinary. That is what will carry us forward. The fleet continued its journey, exploring new systems, making alliances, and preparing for the challenges that awaited. Every day brought new discoveries, new tests, and new opportunities to prove the value of human ingenuity. Months later, a grand celebration was held across the recovered colonies. Humans danced, laughed, and shared stories of survival. Children played among the ruins of former battlefields, and for the first time in years, hope flourished. Elena stood on the observation deck, watching the lights of human cities flicker against the dark. She remembered the Queen's words, "Prove that your kind is worthy of the galaxy." Humanity had done more than survive. They had earned respect, shown ingenuity, and demonstrated the power of courage. The galaxy was still full of unknowns. Threats waited in the darkness and new challenges would arise. But humanity was ready. They had faced extinction, outwitted a superior foe, and emerged stronger, wiser, and united. Elena knew that the real test had just begun. The universe was vast and filled with civilizations more powerful than humanity had ever imagined. Yet she also knew that human ingenuity, resilience, and courage were limitless. They would face every obstacle not with fear, but with determination, creativity, and the unshakable belief that humanity could overcome anything. As the stars stretched endlessly beyond the observation deck, Elena whispered to herself, "We survived, and we will thrive." Humanity had proven once again that even against the most advanced civilizations, cleverness, unity, and courage could turn the tide. The story of humans in the galaxy was far from over. It was only just beginning. The stars would witness the rise of a species that refused to bow, refused to surrender, and refused to be forgotten. Humanity would shine, not through dominance, but through brilliance, heart, and the unbreakable will to endure. And in that shining future, every human, from the smallest child to the bravest captain, knew one truth. The galaxy was theirs to explore, to challenge, and to shape. The universe had tested humanity, and humanity had passed.